Homemade kombucha is much cheaper than the store-bought brews, and it is some of the best I've ever tasted. Over the past several years, I've been brewing my own kombucha, and in this video, I'm going to show you how I do it. Kombucha is made by fermenting sweetened black tea with a symbiotic culture of bacteria and yeast, or a SCOBY, which is said to have probiotic benefits. You can order a living SCOBY online or grow your own from a store-bought bottle of raw kombucha, like I did. The process of making flavored kombucha, which is what I prefer, involves two different fermentation cycles. The first ferment converts sweet tea into a tart kombucha, and the second turns the flavored fruit juice and kombucha mixture into a carbonated drink. Once you get into a continuous rhythm of kombucha production, these two cycles will overlap each other. Assuming you already have a SCOBY, the first step is to make a pot of tea. I usually brew a half a gallon per week, which is about enough kombucha for me and my mini fridge. In order to speed up the process, I'll bring half of the water to a boil. For this step, I usually use tap water. When the water has started boiling, I'll remove it from the hot burner and add a family-sized tea bag and let it steep for 10 minutes. Keeping your SCOBY healthy is important. It will do best on a diet of 100% black tea, but I prefer using decaf tea and sometimes change things up with green tea, white tea, or oolong tea for a slightly different flavor. So occasionally I'll need to refresh my SCOBY with a batch of black tea to keep it healthy. Add another quart of cool, filtered or spring water and remove the tea bag. Mix in a half cup of sugar and stir until dissolved. Allow the sweetened tea to cool down to at least 85 degrees, or all the way to room temperature. Your SCOBY will do best in a warm, dark location. During the first fermentation, the tea will start to develop little bubbles and become naturally effervescent within a day or two. This first fermentation process usually takes 5 to 7 days, depending on the temperature and how sour you like your kombucha. I try to shoot for a pH of 2.5 to 2.3. At this point, it tastes a bit like sparkling apple juice and is technically ready to drink, but I prefer flavoring mine with fruit juices and allowing a second fermentation to fully carbonate the kombucha. This process would normally take place here, but I'll finish showing you the first fermentation cycle before getting into the second. Having removed the fermented tea from the first cycle, the glass container should be empty at this point. I usually remove the SCOBY and set it in a clean bowl while I rinse out the glass container. Finally, add the fresh pot of sweet tea to the glass fermentation container. Place the SCOBY back into the fresh tea and secure a cotton cloth over the top. This will keep out any fruit flies or dust and will allow the SCOBY to breathe. Return the container back to the dark, warm closet and make yourself a reminder to check it again in 5 to 7 days. For the second fermentation cycle, we'll mix fruit juice with the fermented tea from the first cycle to create a flavored kombucha. For this step, I usually go with the store-bought brands, but always look for the 100% juice when possible. I sometimes also add real fruit and fresh juice to the mix. A good starting ratio for this mixture is 1 part fruit juice and 3 parts kombucha tea. Certain ingredients may negatively impact this fermentation process, but here are some of my successful favorites: cherry, strawberry, raspberry, blueberry, peach, guava, grape, and soursop. You can also add ingredients like ginger, cardamom, hibiscus, lavender flowers, etc. I'll give my reusable bottles and caps a good rinse in hot water and let them sit for a few minutes before filling with my flavored kombucha mixture. I usually use smaller, single-serving bottles and prefer plastic lids since they seem to last longer than metal ones. I also have bigger flip-top bottles for larger batches of kombucha. Give the mixture one last stir and fill the bottles, leaving an inch or so of air at the top, and tighten the lids firmly. I mark each bottle so I can keep track of the different flavors in the fridge. Place these bottles back in the closet for the second ferment and monitor the process over the next 3 to 5 days. If you use a plastic soda bottle, you will be able to feel the pressure increasing over time. If you're using glass bottles, you may want to check the internal pressure by slowly opening a lid each day. You will get better at gauging this with experience. When properly carbonated, the release of pressure will cause bubbles to rush to the surface. Once I'm happy with the internal pressure, I move the bottles to the refrigerator, which will stop further carbonation. The kombucha is even better after about a week of resting in the fridge. I pour my finished kombucha through a strainer to remove any new SCOBY clumps that may have formed during the second fermentation process. If all goes well, you should have a very drinkable, not too acidic, fruity, fragrant, and fizzy drink.